All right, so if you need something like this is my tongue piece. I'm making it out of a whole different patch color so I can have a front and a back that is red. And so if you're doing something like this, the solution to making sure that we can sew our back and our front together is one, have your pattern drawn on one side, and then since this is way too small for any of our hoops, you'll see that I've safety pinned my two pieces together. The part that I'm going to keep open, just like with my arms and my legs, is going to be this short end right here that's actually going to attach to where his my guy's little mouth is. And I'm going to hold this piece of fabric in a weird little claw hand. It looks like this. Wop, 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 wop. 2 fingers up top, 3 fingers down bottom, and the 2 fingers sandwich my fabric, the 3 fingers down here pinch my fabric, and that keeps all of this flat, just like a hoop does, like this one over here. All of that's flat. The safety pins is mostly so that my fabric doesn't wiggle around on me when I'm not holding onto it perfectly. But just like with everything else, I'm going to be sewing around this edge with a back stitch. So I'm going to be starting my little back stitch just like before. I'm going to be keeping this back stitch very small. If I don't, then we'll end up with big holes in the side of our fabric, and that will be essentially a gigantic place where stuffing can come out. Now, I don't need as much stuffing in my tongue because I do want it to still be kind of flat, but I'll also show you how to make a little 3D section on this guy. So that'll be after I flip him inside out and stuff him just a little bit. So I'm going to be doing a back stitch around this edge right here with small little stitches. And you'll notice that my thread color is red, as is my fabric color. This is on purpose. Even though these stitches will be on the inside of my stuffed animal, you can sometimes see them a little bit, especially where your stitches are a little bit larger. So you want to use a color that is similar to the colors of your fabric. So on my guy's main body, his fabric is blue, and I'm using a green thread because that will not be as visible if some of the stitches show up. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing this. You can watch the video, continue, I don't know, magic of editing. You're gonna see the future in a second, okay? Okay, see you in a second. All right, so what I'm gonna do here on his tongue is I'm actually gonna put a little groove down the middle of his tongue. I've already stuffed him and flipped the outsides edges of his opening back into him. And what I'm going to do is something called a, oh gosh, what was it? Doubled back running stitch or something like that. At least that's what I've heard it called. But if I'm horribly, horribly mistaken, maybe it's like just double running stitch or something. So I'm going to lead my thread in from the inside so that I don't have to see it. And what I'm going to essentially do is do a running stitch in one direction, and then I'm going to double back and do the running stitch in the same holes going the opposite direction. And what this will do is it's going to cover up all of my gaps, and it's going to let me pull this area in the middle really tight, like it's got a little like pillow crease. This is good for any time that you have an area where you want to have something that looks kind of like an elbow crease, or if you want to do something like this with a tongue with a depression down the middle. If you have like a little butterfly and you want the little segments to be separate from one another without making them separate pieces, you can do this. And I'm just doing just straight down. It's a little bit crooked, more crooked than I'd like. Oh, there we go. And you can do this in smaller stitches or bigger ones. I'm doing a little bit bigger just for time's sake right now. All right, so I've reached the end of where my little depression is going to be. So now I'm going to just go back in the opposite direction. So here's where I came out. I'm going to come down right here, and I'm going to come up right where that one ended. Make sure that's pulled nice and tight. I'm going to go down right here and up where this one ended. Down where that one ended, up where this one started. Down here, up here. And I'm stitching straight through the stuffing that's already inside this little tongue. And then I'm going to come back right here through everything. And I'm gonna double on this last stitch to really make sure that's locked in place. All right, now this is the one I think that looks a little bit neater than this one. This one, you got a really big jog in a weird spot. So this is gonna be the top of my tongue. And what I should do is come back to the inside middle portion. And now I'm going to do the same exact whip stitch I did to attach on the sides right here. The only difference is that now I'm attaching to the front of his face instead of along a seam. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to arrange how I'm stitching, but the actual motion is exactly the same. I'm going to be coming in from one side and then attaching to the front. So a little stitch here. And I haven't pre-sewn this one shut. You can do this at the same time. You don't necessarily always want to. I'm gonna see if it's gonna be easy, but I've got like several layers of cloth here, so I might come back and decide, nah, I need to do that separately, but here, let's get through this first layer. All right, so that's where my first whippy stitch is gonna be. And that's going to attach to him at about right here. Come on, go in. Come out. Uh-oh. Undid my needle. Okay, so anyway, so here is my last whip stitch, and I have very, very little thread left, so I am going to knot this as best I can by coming around that stitch once and then around that stitch again to help make a little knot. And just like I usually do, I'm going to plunge down somewhere into my guide. In this case, I'm going to go down his tongue. And since I had very little thread left and I'm not so sure about the security of my knot, I'm just going to come down as far away as I can and pull all of that thread through. And then where did my scissors go? Oh, thank you, dear. And snip it right near that fabric so that it will get pulled right back in. And now, Hangry Jr. is complete.